So next, I wanted to show you my interview with Ron Miskin of the Buffalo Wool Company. Ron's been a friend of mine for a while, and I've been a big supporter of his for even longer, which you'll see. But let's get to the interview because I think you're going to really learn a lot about buffaloes and the fiber that comes from them. All right, so today, as you know, I'm at the Dallas-Fort Worth Fiber Festival, and I had to track down my friend Ron Miskin. So welcome to the show, Ron.
Well, Charles, thank you very much for having me here. This is exciting to see you doing this now.
This has been actually a long time, you guys don't know, that I've been trying to get him. So I had to go to a show where he was to get him. But that's kind of fun. So tell us a little about Ron Miskin and your fiber journey.
Well, as you know, about 2005, my father asked me to go down to the ranch and help him lay out some bison hides. What I didn't know at the time was that would probably dictate the next, 20, 30 years of the rest of my life.
And we're thankful for it.
Yeah, well, my wife and I are now the Buffalo Wool Company, and we process and harvest American bison fiber, turn it into yarns, turn it into socks, hats, gloves, things like that. And been making yarn for a while now. It's sort of my thing.
Yes. Buffalo wool, and we've talked a little bit about that on the show, is great wool because it doesn't pill, and great fiber because it doesn't pill. Sorry, and that's one of the things I think I love the most about it. So when you get it in colorways, it's like the perfect thing.
Well, the bison fiber itself is different from sheep's wool. I mean, if you look at the environment that a bison lives in, they are high mountains, arid plains. They're not fragile creatures.
Right.
Mother Nature takes care of its own. The protection that they have, this undercoat that we use,
right,
it grows out in the winter, sheds out in the spring. It's built for tough. It's built for very harsh environments, and it's built to protect them. It's a very fine, soft fiber. I actually brought some here to show you if you want to actually talk about bison fiber. Yeah, we brought props. So this is pure bison down. This is the undercoat after it's been de-haired.
Lofty. Let me tell you, lofty.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, this is about maybe 7-8 grams of fiber. It's a solid, smooth protein. It doesn't shrink or felt. You can throw it in the washer and dryer. He said it doesn't pill. It doesn't shrink. So it traps a lot of dead air. So it's very insulating. Whether you're insulating from the cold in cold climates or insulating from the heat down here in Texas.
Exactly. We've been talking a lot about that.
Yeah, I was one of the last people to believe in wearing wool in the summer, but I'll never go anywhere without a wool t-shirt now. I mean, it just works. It regulates your body temperature, it wicks moisture, it keeps you dry and comfortable.
And you guys have gone into ready-to-wear too.
Yeah, that's this whole thing's been an evolution. When we first started, all we were doing was harvesting the down, the undercoat, and de-hairing it, separating the coarse, crunchy guard hairs from that fine, soft fiber, and putting out roving for hand spinners. And the story on that is actually really funny. Back before Dad asked me to go harvest those hides, what he had done was he's director of the National Bison Association, and
that I did not know.
Yeah, and now currently my wife is now. So that's what T's doing. But they were back in the late 90s, early 2000s. Bison were not profitable to raise. So the only people that were actually raising and ranching bison were people that had the passion for the animal.
Okay.
So if you can make the animal more commercially viable, make it have more value, you'll get more people raising them. We'll end up with more bison. Helps heal the prairies. It's better for our rangelands and things like that. So how do you do that? You make them worth something. And what the National Bison Association done is said, all right, what parts of the animal don't have commercial value? You look at the hides, the horn, the hair, the hoof, because the easy answer is the meat. Well, if there's not super huge supply and demand, you can't just raise meat prices. But if you can take all of the other parts that don't have value and find a use, find a purpose for them, it's just much more, socially conscious to don't waste things like that. The fiber has a lot of value. But what we were doing was in the spring when they were shedding, we'd pick up the fluff off the blackberry bushes and the fence around the ranch and throw it in a box in the barn. And Dad, when this challenge came out from the association to help people find a way to add value to the animals, He put the box on eBay. Yeah, you can sell anything on eBay. 3-pound box of nasty, dirty buffalo hair. And we watched as the bids started rolling in. $20, $30, $50, $80, $100, $120.
Wow.
And we're going, okay, what's going on? This is right. As it gets close to closing, $400, $420 for a 3-pound box of nasty, dirty buffalo hair, unprocessed, unwashed, full of grass and guard hair and crap. And so, why? What do they know that we don't know? Because, there's a few buffalo out there, and we can do this. The woman that bought it first was a lady in Colorado. She said, well, it's felt and such. And she goes, but, we'll work with it. And then the other woman is a lady by the name of Elizabeth Lang.
Okay.
She's a master knitter, master spinner, incredible fiber artist up in Massachusetts. Elizabeth started answering some of the questions for us, showing us, well, if you can separate the guard hair and spin it, and it's like, all right, well, what is guard hair? And so that started the learning process. And we started taking the fiber. We found a little mill up in Connecticut that would separate that guard hair from the down and give us that fine, soft down. And we started producing roving. This was we were currently called the Brown Hair Project at the time.
Okay.
And then in 2005, a woman by the name of Linda Courtright with Wild Fibers magazine had come down to do an article on my father and this brown hair project. She picked up a pound of the roving and took it out to Stitches West out in California. Thursday night they have a preview for students, and she put the roving out and made it available. She said 10 minutes, it was gone. She gets on the phone and says, get on a plane, everything you have, and get out here, you're in business. So there we go. We started, so we got fairly serious about the roving production. And then as we learned that, in the world that there's this many people who spin, but there's this many people who knit. So we found a spinning mill who would take our roving and turn it into yarn. Well, as we're going, we had no idea that you could do what you could do with yarn. We didn't know anything. Elizabeth had knitted us a scarf, and we guarded that scarf with our life. It was our only knitted sample. Nothing else. I had this one moss knit scarf, and she wrote up this pattern. It's a double moss knit pattern, literally 2 lines. That's all it is.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to it. But so then we actually had another woman later on take that same pattern and turn it into 7 pages of description. It was, but anyway, that's just one thing that's always interesting is how different designers write patterns. Mm-hmm. But you learn, and we've learned as we've gone along. We finally learned that you can blend the fiber and add things to it to enhance the properties of the bison. And we use a lot of silk now because silk is pretty amazing. It takes color beautifully. It's got a nice drape, and it works well with the springy, bouncy memory.
And
fiber.
we've talked a little bit about different fiber content and what the different sources of fiber. And so when you combine those into the yarn, that's what makes that great property.
Yeah, and just you want to just make things better. Sometimes things just work better together.
Sure, they do.
Yeah.
But I think it's funny, the analogy is who knew that eBay could do marketing research?
Absolutely. The amount of things we've learned through just random luck, stupid mistakes, things like that. It's been a journey along the whole way.
That's funny. So here's a question that I don't think I've ever asked you in all the years we've known each other. Do you knit?
Yes. Poorly. Okay. There's some
Practice
story to it.
makes
Yeah.
perfect.
I can knit. As a matter of fact, there's a wonderful designer named Myrna Stallman who has taught us a lot about yarn making and yarn design in the beginning. Because she would come and say, well, if you do this, and the annoying part was she was always right. Our first yarns were all Z-plied instead of S-plied. We just had issues all over the place. Well, I had to take Myrna from DFW Airport up to Oklahoma City. She was teaching at a class, teaching at a yarn shop up there.
Okay.
So on this 2-hour car ride, she said, "You're going to learn to knit."
Talk about you can't escape.
You can't escape. So yes, I do knit, and occasionally I do have to deal with my wife. Anything she spins, because I had to teach her how to spin. Anything she spins, I will knit. or weave. I'm a much better weaver than I am actually a knitter.
Okay.
But for a long time, I would make things. I'm good at dishcloths. I can handle dishcloths just fine. But somehow I've never had truthfully the time to sit and progress. It's always more work things. I'll do 10 stitches of 10 rows of a pattern, and all right, I've got that. But because I faked knitting for a long time, somehow I got a reputation as somebody who can solve knitting problems.
Ah.
And yeah, we were at an event once, and literally Melissa Leitman's in the booth next to me with her yarns and things like that. One of the show directors comes up to me and goes, "Can you solve this problem?" She had an issue in one of her patterns, and I had to finally admit that I am a fake knitter. I can stockinette, I'm great. Garter stitch, I'm okay. But yeah, just, as long as I'm circular needles.
But he knows the difference, y'all. He knows the difference.
I can read patterns. I have done.
You're
like
so
lace
much
knitting.
farther along than so many other guys.
I love it. I have made socks. I have made a pair of mittens once.
See, that's shaping. That's good.
Yeah, I can increase, I can decrease, but So in answer to your question, I'm a very poor knitter, and I'll just tell you that straight up.
I'm excited to know that. I really am. That's awesome. So Buffalo Wool has been around since...
We started, originally we were Buffalo Gold. We started that in 2005. My father and I started that in about 2011. He had a chance to move about 6 hours from us up towards Amarillo.
Okay.
We thought at the time it'd be better to split the company into two parts, or to let him do that, because we had different visions of what we wanted to do. My wife at the time had a lot of stuff she wanted to do. Dad was trying to get away from the hand knitting side of things. That was kind of where we felt at home. I love dyeing yarn and doing that part of it. So we started the Buffalo Wool Company in 2011. And we've been doing that ever since.
I remember, I came in around Buffalo Gold days time.
I think so, because I still, when we started Buffalo Wool Company, was when we did the Kickstarter for the truck.
Yep, the truck.
And so every day I walk out and look at all those names out there and all the different people that helped and contributed, and that's, Charles Stark, right there in my face every day for the last 9 years.
I've been a big supporter of their company for a very long time.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Because if you didn't put out such a great product, I wouldn't be. I couldn't have a part of it, because I think guys are like that. If it works for them, they're going to use it. If it doesn't, they don't.
Oh, absolutely. But the one thing we've been really blessed with and lucky about is that the feedback and the communication. I mean, I didn't come into. I'm never going to say I'm an expert on anything. But there's people out there that do, and people that use it, and people that work with it. Well, they'll come and say, "Oh, well, if you'll do this, it'll be better." Mm-hmm. Love that, and that's the only way we got better. It's been a community effort since the beginning.
It's a great community.
It absolutely
it really is, and you meet stellar people like Ron all the time. So you brought us some other things today.
Oh yeah, I was going to show you. I mean, sort
we
of
love
like,
show and tell too.
Show and tell, like I said, I like to dye yarn. This is our Bison and silk blend, sexy. Like that's one of my favorite things to do. It's just silk takes color so nicely. That sheen, the depth and the richness. It's exciting when stuff comes out of the dye kettle like that.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So in talking about that, when I first made that yarn, I had a mill that misplied a yarn. Instead of plying it at 7 twists per inch, they plied it about 2 twists per inch. Doesn't work really well for knitting.
Super tight, yeah.
Well, it's not even super tight. It's just like 2 strands laying next to each other. So it wasn't good enough quality to sell to knitters. And I thought, all right. Unfortunately, I've got most of my life savings tied up in this one bale of yarn, and I can't sell it. What am I going to do? A little panic ensues. I talked to another friend who has a mill up in Maine, and he told me, well, I got an idea. Why don't you make some socks? Socks. Okay. So he contacted a friend of his who has a sock company up in Vermont, a company called Cabot Hosiery, and said, can you make socks out of this? And the guy just flips and says, yes, this is amazing stuff. So we started making Bison socks. And at the time, I had no idea that this was my future. At the moment, it was just a rescue me and keep me from losing the house and being homeless.
Oh, that's hilarious.
But in the meantime, it's probably the best thing that ever happened to us. We've progressed into a lot more ready to wear, and that's, again, where you have this many people who spin and this many people who knit. Most people have feet. I've learned that one. And people like to be comfortable. Who knew? Yeah, exactly. People like to be comfortable. So the ready-to-wear thing has been really exciting. We're very adamant about producing here in the U.S., and because we're small, because there's never going to be huge volumes of this, knitwear just works. Instead of having to do big bolts of woven fabric and things like that, we're cut and sew in lots of ways. Knitting is a way to make individual garments, even when you get into production knitting. It's a way to make individual garments with zero waste that are shaped and fitted and not. I don't need to make them. I don't have to make millions of them, like if I was
To make it cost effective, yeah.
to make it cost effective. Yeah, you know, it literally uses one strand at a time, so I don't have to provide 90 cones like you do for a large weaving project. So we started making things, and we've
I'm glad you make things.
yeah, things have.
Because even though I like to knit, like I like to knit socks, I like to buy his ready-to-wear socks because they're so well made and I can get them so fast. And his Bison, why not?
It's been working. So again, we've just kind of extended it. Bison self-regulates, it wicks moisture. Again, it's that machine washable and dryable. It's been very durable, and it's taken us on new stages of the adventure. So.
But it's great stuff, and
Yeah.
I mean, you can't feel the loftiness. But if you ever get a chance, go to the website, which we've put on the screen several times by now, I'm sure,
Yeah.
to look at these, because there's a great selection of them.
Yeah, and if you're, traveling this summer up in Yellowstone, you'll see them in the gift shop up there now, which is a big deal for us. Yeah, that was
exciting.
That was a sort of a cool one. Because we're going back to the origins of the bison around this country. There's such a history with them. That's what I love.
That's amazing, because if you think about the history of the plains and the history that Yellowstone still has in our country, to be able to have your product sold in there, that's really really special.
Bison are really the one thing that is unique to North America. They literally roamed from east to west, from Mexico City up to Barrow, Alaska, from the Carolinas to California. All across this country, bison just were here. They were well suited to the land. They were such an integral part of the ecosystem that when we killed off all the bison, we started losing things like the ground birds. This fiber that they grow out in the winter, they will shed it out, and the quail, the dove, the pheasant would use it for lining nesting material. Their hooves aerate the soil, but when they're wallowing, rolling in the grass, they're picking up grass seeds in their coat and then spreading them across the country. We get rid of the bison, we have a dust bowl. We have cattle on the land that are depleting and eating the grass to the ground. It takes the nutrients and minerals away from the soil. Bison replenish it. And so right now there's a big movement to bring back bison to help replenish this overworked, overfarmed soil across this country.
That's true. That's very true. So what are the dangers of getting wool from a bison?
Well, they're big, they're hairy.
I can't imagine that's an easy process.
It's not. And you don't get much off of one bison. The way we got started, like I said, was picking up off the fence and blackberry bushes and around the ranch. That's not super, effective you can't scale that. That's a hard one. So what we do now is we put out street sweeper brushes, the big plastic bristle brushes, slide them down on fence posts. We have those on ranches all over the U.S. So ranchers will go out, collect the fiber, throw it in a bag, throw it in the freezer for 30 days, send it to us, we write them a check, boom, bison fiber. We also, the reason bison are raised here in this country is mostly for meat. So when they take the animal, we shear the hides. It keeps them from having to use as much sodium hydrosulfide, the chemical they use to burn the hair off, to tan leather. So that's method number 2. And that's really where we get the bulk of it right now. We also do a little bit of live shearing on some of the big ranches that have hydraulic squeeze chutes. So They run them into the spring, give them their worming injection. You got about 6 seconds to clip on them.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're being held.
Right.
A full-size bull can be 3,000 pounds. They're not domesticated animals. They're not going to hold still to get sheared.
So even more precious is this bison fiber.
Yeah, and when you shear a full hide, you get a pound and a half of fiber maybe.
Oh, really?
By the time you scour it, wash it, you lose a third of that. Then when you dehair it, you lose another half or so. So on average, I get 4.5, 5 ounces of fiber per animal.
Wow.
Hence the price. That's a lot. That's really where it comes from. It just takes a lot of animals to do this.
What about the American processing system is it that affects the bison fiber?
Well, bison fiber requires a little bit more processing than, say, sheep's wool. The scouring, the initial washing, bison don't have sebaceous glands. They don't have a body oil or a lanolin like sheep's wool do. But the fiber is very fine and crimpy, so it does trap a lot of dirt. So the scouring process of washing is extremely important. But it's different than sheep's wool because you're not trying to break down that grease.
Right.
You're really just trying to remove more protein fiber. So it's a little bit different chemical system in the washing, and a lot of rinsing, a lot of just trying to get the water.
We haven't really talked about wool composition yet, but we will on the channel in the knitting clinic section.
So washing is first, and then again the dehairing. Dehairing is, we kind of mentioned a little bit, is the process of separating those fine, soft down fibers from the coarse, heavy guard hairs. And this is where this has been our big bottleneck in the U.S. There's not a lot of commercial dehairing. It's typically used for cashmere and alpaca, but there's not a lot of either of those productions here. There was a company in Massachusetts called Forte Cashmere going back 20 years that was doing it on a large scale, but they packed up and went to China. Because the bison is such an American icon, because I'm very passionate about the American textile traditions, this country was built on wool and fabric and cloth, and we have a lot of textile tradition here that is slowly going away. It's being moved overseas. We're losing the machinery, the technology, the knowledge of how to do this. This is something that I've been very passionate about, is trying to make sure that we work with U.S. mills and do this. But the dehairing stage is difficult. So we're currently in process of finding land to build our own commercial dehairing facility.
Wow.
Because there's a lot of small producers now who are raising alpaca, who have cashmere goats, that don't have a good source of getting this fiber to its best state.
Yeah, you probably don't know this. There's a lot of alpaca farms just here in Texas.
Oh.
Not even to mention across the country.
Yeah. But again, if you don't dehair it, you have those heavier, coarse fibers in it. That's not the best possible production of the fiber. So we have found a good wool scouring plant that will take the time, shut down for a week, clean the tanks, and start washing bison. And that's been amazing. I have a spinning mill I cannot tell you how much I love these men. There's nothing they don't know about yarn construction. It's a 5th generation mill. It's been open since 1853, and they do an amazing job.
Yeah, one day I would like to take you there.
We need to,
channel.
Charles. We gotta go.
But
it's
I think
so
it
much
would be so advantageous to see how, because we've talked about how it goes from sheep to your needles, but the idea of seeing it in that environment, I think would be great. So maybe look for it in a future episode. We might go there.
Well, this whole production, the whole spinning, the technology hasn't really changed in 6,000 years. You were putting twist in fiber. The machinery at this mill was built in 1916. Still running today, and that's what the yarn is made on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because they'd already figured it out. But I want the more we lose of that machinery, the more we lose of that, we're losing a part of our heritage, a part of our culture.
That's
so,
true.
Again, very adamant about trying to keep as much of the processing here as possible.
That's what I like about Ronnie. He's very passionate.
Yeah,
I don't know anybody like that.
I didn't come into this going, I want to save the American textile industry. I want to do that. It's just an experiment, and it's having fun. It's seeing what you can do. It's finding those challenges that, somebody says you can't do this. That's what I want to do, and there's so much in working together with people. When you can connect somebody who can do one thing and somebody who has something else, and putting those together, everybody wins.
The common theme through everything is community.
Absolutely.
It really is.
Absolutely.
So have you seen a lot of, in the last year, since in relation to yarn, have you seen a lot more guys buying yarn from you?
Because I make brown yarn that comes from a big burly animal, I've always had a great guy connection crowd.
Which is probably why I like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of just guy factor to this, but also being a guy, and it's just, I don't know, it's comfortable. I haven't. It's not that I can say I've seen more or less. That's what I've always been around. That's, and I like it because guys are there's. I hate to say the guys are a minority in this industry, but they are. There are a lot more women knitting and everything like that.
That's what this channel's all about.
And I feel that sometimes it's a lot easier for me to walk up to a guy and say, "So what are you making and doing?" than it's just.
We don't mind as much. I don't mind as much if a guy says, "Hey, what's going on?" I'll gladly show you what I'm making.
Yeah, and I like that. I feel
the other way around. I don't know why. I don't know. It's not. To me, it's encouragement, and that's all I want to do is just try to encourage, bring you the guys that might show you and give you a passion about how you can get into this industry.
Well, I got to tell you one story. We play with a lot of different things. I have a buddy down in San Antonio that forges knives, makes beautiful working knives for tools. We do a show in Washington, D.C. every year.
Okay.
And it's a little booth. It's a 10-foot tent on the mall right in front of the National Portrait Gallery. And we just cram it with stuff. I mean, we bring in the socks, the hat, everything. But I bring this guy's knives because they're stunning. So we're in the booth one day, and I get these two little 16-year-old girls.
Okay.
And they work on a bison ranch in Alaska.
Oh.
One girl's job, she is a buffalo skinner. Little bitty cute. It just would have been at home as, on Instagram or doing whatever, everything. And on the other side of the booth, I've got two sailors, two submariners, who are in there looking at yarns. They're stationed on a boat. They knit socks. So I've got these two couples, these little girls looking at these big, blunt, big
knives.
Sharp skinning knives, and these two big burly sailors sitting there looking at sock yarn. And just the fact that it was totally legit. They were both interested for absolutely practical purposes in what they were looking at.
Yep.
They knew what they were looking at. There was no right, but it was just such a out of the norm experience. I thought, this is so cool.
That's a good story.
And I would have given anything to have gotten a picture or capture it, but you don't want to do things. But it was wonderful, and that's one thing I love is that makers in general get this stuff. And I don't care who it is, who you are, or whatever. If you like to take one item and transform it into something else, if you want to be that part of the chain, we all get it. We understand, and we'll work together.
We do get it.
Yeah.
Yep. And we're going to try to make you do it too. So, well, Ron, I want to thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you
very much for having me. All right.
All right.
So you caught Ron on a serious side. For the most part, he's got a really good sense of humor, and he's a really great guy, and I'm really excited about the future with Buffalo Wool, although I think the cat's out of the bag, and a lot of the yarn that they're going to be using that they've produced up till now is going to be through Stunning Stitches Studios, who you'll meet later. So be on the lookout for that, and we will make announcements as they come.